Sacha Dunable, how you doing?
I'm all right. I'm dirty.
Dirty, that's okay. It's man's work and making good guitars. What's your background? Where are you from? You from LA?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm from Southern California, but I grew up split between LA and San Diego. And so, I would consider myself a native.
Were you musically inclined in school, or what really where did you start finding a leaning towards?
Well, as far as playing music, I started playing guitar, I think, when I was like 10, but it was because I think I was inspired by during that time, what was big, like Metallica, Guns N' Roses, MTV, late 80s, early 90s, playing guitar was like a cool thing. I mean, I still think it's a cool thing, but back then it was the cool thing, I think, as far as pop culture music. I got into it there, yeah.
Did you have a musical family, or was it pretty much
Not really, no. I mean, there was music played, and I think people listened to music, but it wasn't nobody played an instrument.
You were a sole instrumentalist.
It was a new thing, yeah.
Oh, crazy. Are you classically trained at all, right?
Here and there over the years, for starting, I think, taking some guitar lessons at the local shop. I mean, I feel like I took some, form of music theory or just things here and there, as they were kind of presented and easy enough to do, in school. I think my high school had a classical guitar class and intro to music theory as electives, so.
Very cool.
I took those, as opposed to whatever else.
So what was your inspiration to start Dunable?
I mean, really there was a lot of years when I was younger and playing on the road a lot and just not really earning much of a living, and I hadn't really earned much adult money prior to that either. So the best I could ever afford, I think, guitar wise, was a used sort of not cheap, but like a Les Paul Studio. I had a few Les Paul Studios over the years, so it's $700-800 in the 2000s. Was sort of the budget. And I would just have one at a time, trading them in and out. So I remember, and these are sort of a few events that probably all led to it out of a lot of events, but Intronaut's first tour in Europe, we got over there. I had one guitar, and I want to say the third show in, I was having it was signal was cutting out, and I'm I don't know why, I'm just switching it. I'm up there just clueless as to why it's happening. And I basically had to do the whole tour like that. And I think maybe I don't know if it was both pickups or just one pickup, but when you don't know how an electric guitar works, it was probably the simplest fix ever. And I just wasn't able to do anything about it. And I had to play shows on the neck pickup only, or borrow a guitar. Actually, we ended the tour by flying to a show in Athens, Greece for the last show, and we showed up, and after all that of a month of dealing with the guitar signal cutting in and out, we showed up at the venue in Athens and the headstock had snapped off on the flight. So I was that's it, just having just one of these I don't know. I feel if that never happened, I probably never would have been interested in learning how to fix guitars and then eventually build them. But I got home from that and started kind of just over time. I guess it probably started by just knowing a guitar tech and maybe asking some questions and watching him do a repair or two, and then. At some point, I had moved into a house, and I'd started doing guitar repair on my own. That's right. And so I got it in my head it would be cool if I could just make my own guitars, because I can't afford to keep buying them, and and none of them were really kind of exactly what I thought would be the most ideal guitar for me anyway. So I was just curious, and then about the process and like what I could like maybe come up with. And yeah, I ended up in a house that had a garage that I could start building a shop out in. And after like a couple something years, I guess, I don't know how long it was, but I kind of had a little bit of a shop together, and I did a couple projects for people, and I guess just built up enough confidence that I could like make guitars that were used, like in a professional setting. Yeah, so and then Intronaut went on tour, I guess, in like 2012 with a couple of those guitars. Myself and Dave, the other guitar player, were using them. And then, I mean, this wasn't even like the plan, but I guess just what sort of naturally happens is like when you're playing in front of a bunch of people and you're touring with a bunch of cool bands, like they all, eventually someone's going to show some interest and be like, can you make me one? And then, yeah, within a couple of years, I think, I just decided like, I'm going to like make it an official brand and make a website, and like put something on the headstock, and then that was probably, I guess, 2014 when it officially went up. And yeah, they haven't let me stop since.
Definitely out of necessity and frustration. That's where Dunable came from.
Yeah, and not really having anything better to do either, Like, I think at that point I was like working in like restaurants maybe, which I didn't like at all. I think I was only doing it because that's something I could do in between tours, because once the band started touring like a few months out of the year, I had to quit my job that I had like in a warehouse for 5-6 years before that. So yeah, it just sucked. I was like, I would rather like, do repair gigs or just work on the side, and it was like related to like what I was, really enjoying playing, so.
And you said earlier that you had some experience as a tech that kind of fed into this.
Yeah, so I did some road teching, which I realized I didn't like so much, but yeah, I worked in a few guitar stores, but I did work at, my last job was at a Guitar Center in LA here. And I was there for 3-4 years, something like that.
It's interesting. Billy Howardell had the same path. He was a guitar tech.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he was doing Trent Reznor's headstocks. And then...
Oh, I know here. Yeah, right.
Perfect
no, I know
circle.
That story. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then Trent's always doing Les Paul Studios, which you just mentioned. So it was kind of interesting thing.
They were like wasteful with their budget, smashing guitars every night, but not that wasteful. It was just studios. So
yeah,
that's cool.
Dunable has very distinctive aesthetics.
Yeah, just like what can you do to make it a little, just cooler feeling and looking and playing, I mean, like I would love to like, in theory, have like an old Mosrite Ventures guitar, but like, sometimes you get these old guitars and they like look cool, but then it's like, you're never going to, they don't play well, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Necessarily, not because they were built poorly, it's just like, they're like old and, designs have just evolved since back then.
Right. Yeah. What were the cardboard? Was it Dan Electros or cardboard?
Right. Yeah. Some sort of like fiber board.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Crazy. Yeah. Really mother of necessity, the lipstick covers for pickups. All that kind of.
Yeah. Well, and all those designs are cool too, but like they weren't made for like heavy music either, So that's kind of what it was. There's really for my taste at the time too, it was like, there's very few options out there that like are suited for that kind of music and also feel good and sound good and you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Don't look corny or whatever,
Yeah, definitely made for the heavier aesthetic, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's curious too, like I think one of the drawing points to me was your finishes.
Well, that was sort of also a necessity thing too, like, because I didn't have a spray booth, so, you know, doing a big, thick, glossy, you know, finish with like industrial coatings is like almost impossible to do if you're building your guitars in a residential area, you know. So like we kind of do it now here and there, but that's also like a whole other skill set that I didn't necessarily learn, especially early on. So I started off just doing like stain and oil finishes, which are cool but not that durable. And then but I like the sort of like thin finish vibe. Even like guitars I had before, like I had a Les Paul Studio with a like really thin lacquer finish on it that I just loved. And I don't know, I think that's, I think because it's like easy, it is one of the things that enabled me to like not sell guitars for a super expensive price point, which was a goal too, because I wanted to make guitars that were for people like me, you know, who couldn't like, who didn't or weren't lawyers or dentists or whatever, that just wanted something to hang on the wall. It's like, I just want something solid that I can take out and like rip, you know, for years and years, you know.
You mean you weren't going for the whole $50,000 recreation of the Peter Green greenie?
I mean, I will. If you're asking, I will do that. No, I mean, I like more of that stuff now. I've gotten into doing more like exotics and like, you know, sort of fun finishes. And we even had like a series called it was NF series. It was like No Frills. It's like, you know, it doesn't look, you know, super pretty, you know, aside from it just being a nice piece of wood, you know, or maybe the wood doesn't even look that nice. You know what I mean? It's just the guitar feels good and it sounds good, and it like is meant, you won't feel bad if you like bang it up, you know. That's sort of what I'm into in the long run, you know.
To the contrary of what we just spoke about, I've seen some finishes that come out that are just like mind-boggling in the pinstriping and like, wow.
Yeah, that stuff is fun too. I mean, you know, when you make so many of these things, it's like, I like to do things that keep it interesting too, you know, want to learn new stuff and stress myself out for no reason.
No, why, right?
Yeah.
If you had to build a dream guitar for any musician, past or present, who would it be and what would it look like?
I would be too afraid to build a guitar for, you know, one of my like hero people, you know, who are all dead anyway, so it's out of the question.
Pass.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't want to build any more guitars. I'm good.
Okay, we'll move on from Dunable.
I feel like I've built so many for so many people, you know, that it's hard to imagine who's left that I like wish played them. But there are some out there. I just don't want to say if they're alive, because I don't want them to know that I want them to play them.
Oh, you know? Yeah, like you need more work, right?
Well, yeah.
Intronaut. My take on it is it's a big blend of like Mastodon, Isis, Tool, Progish, but there's been a real like, and I think with any good, you know, musician that has the wherewithal, there's been a progression in your sound. Has it been intentional from album to album, or is it just a natural flow that's because you've been in unit for so long?
Yeah, no, I'd say it's intentional, you know, because you just like get better, I think. Or you just like, I don't know, for me, it's like, I always think my newest ideas are like the best. So I just like get excited and like you sort of like take, you know, your sort of like approach from the last one, and, you know, in my head at least, it's kind of like consolidating it and making it better and just refining it. And yeah, I don't know. That band is just all about like making music that we want to hear, you know, like most bands probably are, but you know, I just want to hear like some wild shit that that I guess sounds like that, you know.
How long has Intronaut been around formally?
Well, the first album came out the first EP, I guess, came out in like 2005. I think we formed like in 2003. And we do have a new record sort of almost there to being done. So yeah, it's been 5 years since the last one. So, you know, I just want to get it done before we're all too old and tired to actually keep doing it, you know?
What's the most challenging Intronaut song to play live and why?
Well, it's been a while, so I don't know if I remember, but I would say probably one of the songs from the last record. I think because it was mostly written, that record, in the computer, as opposed to like being fully jammed out in a room. So I don't know if we played any of those songs. Most of those songs we had not played as a full band until after they were recorded. And, you know, when you're just trying to make the wildest shit you can imagine, like, the computer has way fewer limitations than, like, you know, physically playing it with 3 other people. So there was a lot of stuff on there where it's like, oh, you know, wow. Like, you have to, like, learn how to physically do that and sing, you know what I mean? There's just sort of like a lot of, and tap dance on your pedals and all that stuff, you know? So there's just a lot to it, you know? But that's also part of the fun too, is like, you know, practicing and getting it done and then playing them live. You know, feels pretty good afterward to not fuck it up.
What's a different songwriting process with Guiltless compared to Intronaut?
Like Intronaut, I feel like is more like even though it's not my band, you know, like I'm sort of like doing a lot of the like raw idea making and writing and stuff. And Guiltless like isn't, you know, none of us even live in the same city. Like every song was written and recorded remotely. Like everybody lives spread out around the country. So I was the last person to join a band that doesn't even really like physically exist, which is not that crazy, I guess, now, you know, as it would have been 20 years ago, right? You know, but like a lot of those songs, I kind of liked the idea of doing it because I just wanted to like play bass in a band and like write bass parts to stuff that other people had written. And also there's not all the pressure of it being like, you know, I didn't have to do, not to sound like I don't have to do anything in that band. I just play bass, but like, you know, I'm not on the admin side of things, you know, and it's like very much Josh's kind of like band, I think, in that regard. Like it's his concepts, like for lyrics and art and even the music, you know, like he sort of had like most of the EP demoed out with Billy and Dan, I think, before they had even found a bass player. So a lot of that stuff was just presented to me. And again, like I just thought it would be really fun to like play heavy bass and like write parts that were like interesting, because I know it can, you know, there's not a lot of bands that do it well, I think, you know, like bass parts. But I think that like every great band does have interesting bass that you're maybe not like hearing right off the bat, but you sort of like, you know, it's still in there. It's part of like what's sort of gluing everything together, you know? And so, it's been really fun and hard too. Like you know, it's just it's something I'd never done before. I've never played bass in a band, but I play in another band with one of the best bass players that, you know, I could ask for. So, I feel like I just like had cool ideas, and yeah, man, it was a lot of work to like self-record and everything, but I guess that's why that's how it's different. I did write, I guess, a couple riffs, but again, it's like, it's way less my baby, you know, than Intronaut. Like I would like provide riffs and be like, or, you know, sort of present stuff like, you know, here's a couple riffs that could go together, and it's like, okay, cool. And then you get the demo back and it's like totally different, you know, but like, you know, still technically my, you know, notes or something, but you know,
the impression of what you gave them.
yeah, which is cool too. Like I didn't want to like, you know, be like in full control of anything for it, because I mean, also because I know those guys are not going to do anything I don't like either, you know. Like I go back with Josh, I've sort of known for a long time, but Intronaut and the Storm of Light toured together a really long time. I don't even know what year it was, but a long time ago. So
More of a trust in the process.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you know, just something about like my, you know, my fanboy sort of relationship with Neurosis. It's like a band I've like loved for, you know, we're coming up on 30 years or something. So like, you know, there's part of me that's just like, oh my God, Josh, like, you know, Neurosis. And then like Neuro wants to put out the record. I'm like, ooh, you know, yeah. And getting to play music that's a little bit more like in that kind of vein, whereas like Intronaut I feel like has that kind of influence, but it's more you know, it's so technical and like melodic and all that it's not like an obvious influence on Intronaut. So getting to just like really dig in and play heavy music is cool.
What's your gear setup for Intronaut, and what's your gear setup for Guiltless?
Well, Intronaut, yeah. I mean, as of the last like tour, you know, I had you know, various pedals and into an amp, into like a stack. So I think the last record we used this Mesa Royal Atlantic head on all the rhythm guitars, and just a cab with Celestion V30s. Acquired a lot more gear since then and experimented a lot more, so I don't know like technically what my rig is these days, at least for recording. I mean, live there's all this stuff now that you can figure out for stuff like that, where you're like flying to like England for a day, you know, and like you don't, like we used to do things like that and you'd show up and it's like just, you know, you're lucky if there's an amp that like works or sounds good, you know, so or that you're just used to, I guess, you know, like so a lot of people now will bring like just like a little solid state power amp and some form of preamp, like either modeling stuff or I found this cool like tube preamp pedal. I've gone through a few of those, you know. Guiltless, I don't know exactly what I'm going to be using live, but I think it's I have like a dark glass head, a lightweight one, and then a similar thing that's a guitar kind of voiced head to split the signal a little bit into an 810. I don't really know anything about bass tone live yet, so we're gonna practice actually before the shows, so like I'll kind of sort it out there, I think.
Well, that's a bonus.
yeah. I'm just trying to recreate the thing that I did on the record, which is like splitting the sort of like fuzzy, like, you know, part of the tone from the like low end that's more direct and clean, you know.
Totally get it.
So I guess I do know something about it. I just haven't done it, you know, in a live setting yet.
What's the biggest misconception people have about running a guitar company?
Well, I don't know. What did you expect that you were going to walk into?
I was expecting like the pictures.
Yeah.
Your Maserati out there.
Yeah. Company, I think a lot of people think that we're a bigger operation than we are. And then a lot of people think that we're a smaller operation than we are. So it kind of like, we're in this like annoying spot where it's like, you know, there's like 10 people that work here, but it's like, there's still, everybody's doing two jobs kind of thing, you know? So we're not fast, you know, as not as fast or sort of like machine-like as what some people are used to in some ways, like you know, in like a kind of Amazon world, you know. I think that, like, you know, on that end of things, like people, you know, might expect like that they can just send an email and hear back in like 5 minutes or something. And yeah, well, I don't remember you like, I mean, like people will like complain about it, which again, like I don't fault them for, because they don't, how would they know, you know, that we're not, that we don't just have like a person like in a call center, you know, or a team of people at a little, you know, desk or whatever.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I feel like the biggest misconception is that there's not like a bunch of like stuff that you got to like deal with that has nothing to do with guitar at all times. You know what I mean? That's the toughest part, I would say. I guess that wasn't the question, but I'll re-ask the question, what's the toughest part? And that's the answer.
I'll just rewind it and replay.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the Mount Rushmore question. It can be anything. Anything you want on Mount Rushmore, and in what order. It can be people, gear, places, ideas, whatever. What are your 4 spots in Mount Rushmore?
Dimebag Darrell's guitar playing. Neapolitan style pizza. Bass 6 length guitars, and tube amps.
What's the best piece of advice you'd give to young musicians trying to carve out their own path in music or guitar building?
Just do it a lot. Just keep doing, you know.
Grind.
Yeah. Be 40, however many years old I am, and still be doing it, you know.
Where can people find out more about all things Sacha Dunable? Dunable Guitars, Intronaut, Guiltless.
Well, DunableGuitars.com is a great place to start. The bands, just look them up on social media.
All right. Well, thank you, Sacha Dunable.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.